Hey, Ryan, what's up?
Not much. It feels like it's just been a little while this time. Only like a couple days, three
Yeah,
days.
it's Monday, and we just did this on Friday, but this is good. We're staying on top of things. This is the important thing.
On that note, I thought I was doing good watching the news during the week, but I didn't think there was going to be a model dropped over the weekend.
Yeah,
Saturday seems like an odd day for me, at least to drop
it's
big models, that kind of stuff. Here we are.
it's been at least 24 hours, so something big has definitely happened in the news of AI. So
So,
yeah, Llama 4
indeed.
is the thing that just came out that we just spoke right before we hit record.
Mm,
And we thought we would just talk a little bit about Llama 4 since it just came out and some of the
absolutely.
tools that are have been on our list of things to look at a little bit closer. Some of them allow us to compare some different models, and
Right.
so maybe we'll do something like that and keep it a little bit more on the briefer side for today's recording. Yeah, Ryan, I know you've got probably a little bit more in-depth knowledge about the new model if you want to share what you've heard about it.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll share my screen first. I will admit that I know some about this model just because of watching YouTube, that kind of stuff, but it's really new. So I assumed that I could just turn on Llama and add it. And of course, it's only been a couple days, so it hasn't been added yet. It is, however, hosted on Hugging Face. And if you've not been to Hugging Face before, I don't want to say a model repository because it's a lot more than that. And we talked a little bit about Gradio before, which kind of came out of Hugging Face. So this interface should look very similar to what I've been doing in a couple earlier sessions. But I think for this model that the main thing that I'm not completely like up to speed on is all the speeds and feeds. So I think the main thing that I know is that the context length seems to be 10 million plus, or that we don't know the limit yet on this one.
It seems like that I think it is 10 million plus is what I read, but
Okay.
it might as well be in infinity. I'm never going to need that many. I don't know
So
how I
I
could.
did see some responses, and one of them was, does this mean the end of RAG, so Retrieval Augmented Generation? Does this mean that, and while I'm talking here, I'll search for them all, but does this mean that if we've got 10 million plus and there's no limit, does it mean that we don't need to use RAG? And I think the main counterpoint I'm seeing is like that assumes tokens are free,
Yeah, I was going
or
to say
maybe
like
you're
it
running on a
still
local
costs.
GPU or something like that, but yeah. I would assume reading from a database would
Tokens
be.
don't grow on trees.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to boil the ocean quite yet. It feels like memoization is maybe, or caching is what I might recommend in the RAG area. So if you've
Hmm.
got a vector database that's got all your embeddings already, I think hitting that as opposed to hitting a model would be cheaper. Maybe wrong. I just assume that would be the case. And I
Yeah.
do feel like caching layers generally do add a lot in terms of performance as well as price advantage here. So
Yeah.
listen, I could be wrong. This could play out completely differently. And it
Well,
might be on the fly. It's handy, but
maybe you're using 10 million for one big dump at the beginning to provide
right.
context, and then from there you're obviously not passing that many back and forth at a regular frequency.
I did hear a little bit about being able to help with guardrails. So a lot of times guardrails will be like, hey, I don't want this kind of answer to come out of my LLM, or maybe I don't want it to go in. So some of that is being able to create a really big system prompt now that has a bunch of those guardrails built in. And once you notice the ones that work, you can start adding them either on the back end or on the front end or both, which is pretty handy. It seems helping with prompt engineering is going to be, or sorry, that context window is going to be helping with prompt engineering, at least in the dev stage. But it's so new. I think a lot of people are just trying to kick the tires and figure out what works and what doesn't.
And it makes it a little bit easier to provide the stuff that we talked about the last recording in these pre-built instructional documentation that we call
Right.
project requirements documentation.
PRD, yeah.
And these things can be pretty detailed now because you can provide all kinds of context
Yeah.
and documentation on what should be done. And anyway, so I think that's another good thing to keep in mind is that you can suck all that stuff in and have that built into the.
Absolutely, yeah. So all I've done here on the screen is just look for Llama 4. The one that comes up automatically happens to have a little chat area you can play around with. There are a couple others that are hosted that don't. For this one in particular, we're looking at the 109 parameter version. Now, there's a bunch more information here in terms of what we're doing, but so this is the 17 billion 16E instruct version. And I say this because there are different versions of the model. There's a Scout, there's a Maverick, there's a, I think, is it Behemoth?
Behemoth.
It's hard to forget some of these names. But Behemoth, is it 400 plus billion parameters?
I
think
actually couldn't tell you.
or is it 200 plus?
I kind of lost count after 10 million. No, yeah.
It's a lot. So the first thing I'm going to do here is take this little chat window here. There's a lot of info on the screen, but what we're going to use for today is just this little chat window here, and we can go back to it. But basically, this is a Gradio interface, or a Gradio-like interface that's running on Hugging Face. We can type in pretty easy ones. So what is water? Or why is the sky blue? Let's see. Why is water wet? So this is like one of those easy little questions. We'll see what comes back. Okay, this is a little bit slower than I expected, but it could be that they're being pounded right now, just in terms of tokens per second. But the answer is very detailed compared to what I'd normally get from like a ChatGPT. It would be a one-liner, maybe two. So this is pretty good. We talked about PRDs. I've got one. I think for a reasoning model, we talked a little bit prior to the show. Like I would normally ask, what is the meaning of life, that kind of thing. I thought it did a pretty good job of this. But also it depends on like the region the model's been trained in and how you prompted, that kind of thing. So in this one, oh, okay, interesting. So beforehand, I had mentioned that the answer that I got was more Western focused. And this because I studied philosophy at university, sorry. So I did the history of Western thought. And this does have a bit of that on that. But in this one, which I find interesting, is there are some Eastern philosophies in here as well, which is interesting. And the answer in general should be something like there are many people who have ideas about the meaning of life, you should pick and choose, that kind of thing. It's up to the user. But I think in this case, this is pretty well-rounded. There's a few things missing in here, okay? But it's not too bad. So I think there's some blind spots in here, which isn't awful. The other thing we talked about, just in terms of, because I know this answer is going to be long, which is why I asked it, full disclosure. I'm going to paste in this PRD that we were talking about the other day. So this is just like how to create a chat app UI. Let's see if this works.
A little bit more advanced than how many R's are in strawberry.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I would hope this could answer. Okay, so it doesn't get the line endings. The mermaid diagram didn't come in very well either. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's just give it, let's go fog. So I said Flask instead of Python just to see what it would do, but it obviously got that.
Really, the speed's not too bad now that it's cranking out code here.
This is quite a bit faster for code. You're right. This isn't too bad. Okay, it doesn't use multiple chat endpoints, which isn't the end of the world. It looks like it's only using OpenAI. And then the Python code, just a quick look through. Okay, so this is pretty bare bones, but that's not too bad. I almost want to see if we can see how many tokens it took. We can't. I don't think. Is he here? Oh, interesting. Maybe not. But this is a fairly detailed response. That's not bad, actually, in terms of the context. The other thing is that just pasting this PRD in can often just be too much. I think we were talking earlier, like some of these free hosting providers for Llama 4, for example, we just type in like a quick, what was yours? What is the Molly Tuttle?
Yeah, I generally like to ask a new model to tell me who Molly Tuttle is, or write me a summary of who Molly Tuttle is and her band, The Golden Highway. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that person, it seems to be getting it right here. And this is something else I want to point out, Ryan, too, is a lot of my complaints that I've had and the blind spots that different models have had are getting smaller. Things are just getting better now.
As it's being trained on more like a bigger corpus, you think?
Exactly. Now I can tell you all those people right there are other than Molly, they're incorrect.
Okay. Sorry for coughing. That's a real-time reaction. That is. I highlighted it because I assumed that would be the problem.
Yeah. Everything else up to there, I can see from San Francisco when she was born. Yeah. Austin City. Yeah, there's definitely some facts in there, but I don't know what it is about her band that this is usually what trips up models. And maybe I'm just throwing a curveball. It's not a fair question, but I guess this kind of points out it's real easy for somebody who,
to trust this, maybe?
Let's say I'm doing some research, and somebody asked me, hey, maybe I'm putting on a concert, and they said, Molly Tuttle and her band's coming to town. We want to do a promotion, put together some material about the band, and I set off in an adventure to research the band and find out. Of course, I could Google and do that, but people are definitely switching up and using models for a lot of research stuff.
I have people pasting me ChatGPT answers as if they're facts on a regular
Totally.
basis now.
And it is
outside of our job, obviously.
flat out wrong.
Is it still wrong when I told it like in
It's totally wrong.
2025?
Yeah. There's a name in there now, Justin Moses. That's Sarah Holzhusband, but they do play together and collaborate together. But yeah, still wrong.
I did. There's a CYA in here. Yeah, I could be wrong. Please check the website, and here's some links of stuff that I definitely didn't check when I gave you this answer. Interesting. So
Yeah.
it feels like this is a good test of corpus size. If it's gotten big enough, it should know these facts kind of thing. So it's going, I don't know, would it need to ingest, like maybe all music or something? Like where would this be as a big repository?
So I've given this similar question task to Perplexity, which for those of you who haven't played with Perplexity, it's built for research. It always provides like citations for all of its facts and everything. And what I found is that when it does, it'll come back with an incorrect list like this of people that is in Molly's band. And what it's confusing is that Molly has played on albums with these artists, musicians, and other places, and maybe they've all been mentioned in a blog post or an article together. And there's just a massive assumption made that because they all recorded together in some project, that's her band, or that's the Golden Highway. And it's just not right. So, yeah, I don't know what to make of it. It seems to be getting slightly better in terms of it knows who Molly is,
just not
but
there,
it still just can't get the band, which, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Now I've admitted
what are you doing here? Bash script.
I've admitted in previous recordings that I'm better at Python 2 than Python 3, but I figured I'd try a bash question. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is I actually know bash pretty well.
As long as it doesn't like think you're trying to do a SQL injection and you get us banned from Hugging Face.
I'm trying to upgrade the LLM here. So I asked this because a lot of times people will know bash and will use bash and could have been using bash for years. But if you don't like it, if you're not interested in it, you probably wouldn't go into things like arrays or brace expansion or defining functions, that kind of stuff. Generally, people won't delve that far into bash, or even just return types and things like that, logging, that kind of stuff. It's more of a bridge a little bit further than what you want. But unfortunately, when in enterprise, you end up hardening your skills, and I end up learning maybe a little bit too much about bash. But I know that this is one of those questions, like in code side, it's pretty easy if you know how to bash and you know what fundamentals to be here. And this is a command that people run all the time. Now, what I expect the answer to be is a subshell, and it will actually repeat bash, but it won't repeat sudo. But let's see. So I expect a bash space -c answer. We'll see if that's the case. Okay, yeah. So that is in fact what it did. Now, prior to this call, I did answer the question before, and it answered in a little bit better way than this. But this is still wrong. Let's see if it gets it right on the second shot. No, it's just using variables for them, which is totally okay as well. But you can see here that apt is repeated both times. And then if you say, I think it's brace expansion, curly brace expansion is the real answer. There we go. And it got it right away as soon as you give it a hint as to what to look for. But it doesn't realize that this is a way to use it this way. Not the end of the world, but again, even for code, there are some, we'll call them blind spots or things like that. I watched a AI engineer talk over the weekend from, I think it was Jane Street, but Bloomberg also has the same problem in that they write all of their code in OCaml. Actually, I think Facebook also has a similar issue. And they write code for other languages in OCaml. So for instead of writing Python, for example, they'll write OCaml for Python. So OCaml is like a Lispy sort of language. So imagine functions. It's primarily function-based. And it will typically transpile or be converted into other languages. And they were saying the problem is that it's not that it can't reason about these things. It's just that the corpus of OCaml code might exist within Jane Street, Bloomberg, and Facebook. Like most of the code that's out there may actually be written by a handful of companies, and as a result, it's difficult to use elsewhere. They were talking about things like VRML, or maybe like writing things for an FPGA, and how that can be difficult because there's not a lot of that code out there. It's typically proprietary. As a result, training a model on this code can be difficult, so you end up doing this internally. What's interesting to me is about, one, the context is fantastic, because you can explain what good VRML code looks like, or how an FPGA should work, or maybe talk about bash, add a bash manual in there, that kind of thing. Here's some bash tips and tricks. The other is that as we're getting these larger and larger models, the corpus, the things that they're hoovering up off the internet is getting bigger and we're getting closer to it. But to your point, is it 99.9, 99.99? Like, at what level do we slurp up all of Wikipedia so it actually knows who Molly Tuttle is and who is in the band?
Yeah. How much of, to the corpus thing, like I wonder if there's just not enough examples on online of handling your bash the way that you just described.
Right, yeah. This is like a downvoted answer on Stack Overflow. Because people, brace expansion, parameter expansion is not something that a lot of people will use in general. It's harder to read as well, which doesn't help.
So that brings up, I guess, a good question is this an outdated practice? Do we need this in our corpus?
Yeah, good point. Good point. And whether or not like Stack Exchange is the right place to read from, because I realize a lot of this is probably Reddit, Stack Exchange, that kind of stuff.
One of the articles, and this is what I still need to do for our site, one of the articles that I'm going to share, one of the blog posts, one of the blog posts talked about this, and I don't want to spoil it, so I'll say go check out the website that we're putting together to host all these, and there'll be some like suggested readings in there that kind of talk more about this stuff. Cool. The other thing, with maybe just a few minutes that we have left, that I think we were going to share, or I was going to share, is just a couple of tools that, since we're talking about comparing things, let me share my screen. Okay. At the bottom here, and by the way, when I was talking about a blog thing or whatever, I'm going to add some kind of navigation, or it'll be obvious along the top here how to go find that stuff. So stay tuned for that. But down here is our list of tools that we've been cataloging that we want to go explore and just have a better understanding on and have well-formed opinions, all that kind of stuff. And one of them on here is this OpenRouter. And Ryan, I don't think you had heard of OpenRouter when I threw this one up here.
I had not. In fact, I'm seeing it more and more as I start to use, funnily enough, iPhone tools will use OpenRouter APIs in order to have a chat UI on your iPhone. But yes, I've not used OpenRouter at all. It's new to me.
Yeah, I haven't actually used it either, other than before we got on the call here, just to log in and make sense of it a little. And to just give you the quick version of it, it's one place for you to try out a lot of different LLMs.
Okay.
We've mentioned before in the recordings that different LLMs are good at different things, and that's the one important thing to remember. Right now, Claude Sonnet 3.5 and 3.7 seem to be, who knows now, with Llama 4 and Gemini 2.5.
They say comparable, but proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, so anyway, it's every week the stack ranking changes on which one's the best one to use for certain use cases, right? And so you can actually put them through the paces here in one place, it seems, where you can try Gemini 2.5 and just get a better idea. Now, one thing we did notice before we go here is if we go into Browse, you can actually look through all of the models, which is nice.
Right, I saw Maverick in there.
Yeah, here it is. And there's a free version. However, I do think there must be a caveat or something, because when I did try to run this earlier, and I did the Molly Tuttle question, I said something like, tell me about. I didn't even get a response. Here we go. I started getting errors about running out of tokens. So I didn't get very far.
And that's not a lot of tokens, actually.
No, not at all.
2,600 is not much.
That's, especially when we were just over here at Hugging Face and throwing all kinds of stuff at it. So I'm not sure what to make of that, but that's my experience.
Yeah, so what you get for free might be better on the Hugging Face side, maybe than OpenRouter.
Perhaps, yeah. Now, I don't want to pass judgment or anything yet. It does seem like there's some really cool things in here to do, and what it seems like is different from some of the other tools that we've seen is right up here at the top. I can say I want to compare all these. Maybe I don't care about Grok or Mini. Oops, and I can turn those off. And then it looks like there's some settings that we can come in here and put in a system prompt. So maybe a little bit better system for doing some baseline testing amongst a lot of different ones. It seems like you're going to have to put in your own, maybe it's a bring your own API key, I think, type of situation.
Some are, yeah. This does look pretty fun for almost performance testing. It's interesting.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, and that's a lot of tokens, actually, for ours and Strawberry. 64,000?
Yeah.
Did I get it right? Sonnet did not. I think it didn't hit Sonnet is the thing.
Yeah, I don't think it actually went over and ran through Sonnet.
Interesting.
Yeah, a good place to see some details, some stats on stuff.
I feel like it maybe this is I need the data I had to put on here, but I'm seeing a lot of graphs that really they rustle my jimmies. It just why does this graph need to be smoothed and animated? Yes, I think we need to go back to the basics here.
Listen, I've been doing some work with chart.js a lot lately.
Fair enough.
I know you can do better than this, for sure.
Yeah. I think the other one that I know is D3. But yeah, you can definitely do a lot better than that.
OpenRouter, it might be useful if you've got your own, if you're already, like many of us, I have a Claude API or a Claude account. I can get APIs from a lot of them, right? So I can just bring them all into here and play around.
Yeah, I feel like having access to all of these in one would be really handy in my brain if there's a way for the API to handle it without me writing something in LangChain. For example, we were talking about that last week on Friday. Like, you can totally write that code so that when you're out of tokens, go to something else. However, if the API can route that for you, that's pretty interesting to me. And there may be a cost associated with it, but when you're trying to develop something pretty quickly, the routing and load balancing is going to be one of those things that's going to be different when you get to staging and totally different when you get to prod. I feel like having a tool like this that you can maybe lean on for a bit once you understand what your market is or how people are using your tool. People are going to hold your tool differently.
Yeah.
That sounds super handy to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other one, and before we go, it's similar, is this LM Arena.ai. So let's take a look at that. And it's...
now, this one I have heard of just because every time they talk about new models coming out, they'll say, oh, and it's top of LM Arena for this and that and the other thing.
Yeah, it's cool. It's got this leaderboard, which we can take a look at and see. It's got...
oh, there you go. Maverick's second place now.
At the top now. So, yeah, that's neat. Zoom in a little bit. Just to be able to go to one place, and who knows. I think there's still a lot of people, and I'm one of them, who are, I would say, it's good to have some healthy skepticism around baselines.
I'm definitely one of those as well.
Who's putting out the baselines, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but,
follow the money kind of thing.
Yeah, who knows.
I do like on here, though, that there are at least 2, if not 3, open source models on this list, which I think is interesting. Maybe that's, in the back of my brain, I'm always trying to look at what can you use offline, what could you use on your phone. If I'm hiking and I don't have cell reception, for some reason I need to ask about, like, how should I go up this hiking trail or something like that. If I need this intelligence offline, open source people are going to be where I'm looking. Yeah, Alibaba's in there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
QWQ, I think, is in fact open source.
It's got an Apache license.
There you go, yeah. Anyway,
that's the Chatbot Arena, and you can actually come down here and, I believe...
right.
I thought you could... yeah, here we go. See all the different models. Oops, I guess that's more of a take you to the product page. I was expecting...
So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you can type something in here and then rate which one you like, but you don't know which one it is until you get the answer.
Oh.
Is that correct? I thought it was like a blind test is how they got their stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's right there. Sorry, it's on the first line.
Ask any questions, it's too anonymous. Yep.
Again, I've not been to the site, sorry.
Okay.
But I think you can type something down here and then rate it, like which is better than the other.
All right, should we give it the Molly Tuttle question?
Let's do it, yeah. Now, I will say the more times you type this in, the more they're going to over-rotate on your question.
Yeah, it could be. Tell me about Molly Tuttle and her band, the Golden Highway.
There we go. Is it done?
I didn't have to agree to any terms of service.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Okay, Model A and B. Can I get rid of these? There we go. It's like a battle in the arena.
Yeah. Is it actually working, though, is what I wonder. The blinking cursor tells me I should be typing, but
should
it's on their side, not ours.
Turn it back on?
No, it could be working.
There we go.
All right. Okay. This side's definitely quite a bit faster.
Yeah, and actually...
And then there's another metric in here. I again, hate to put the Datadog hat on, but the time to first token seems to be another one of those metrics. And I'd say both of these didn't fail that task, but it feels like 10 seconds is that limit for me, personally. Like, when it's over 10 seconds, I'll go elsewhere. I had opened up another tab. I was going to try it on my own kind of thing. But it feels like we're getting to a point where, yeah, that patience is wearing thin. Are these band members correct?
You know what? They are.
Oh, shoot. Okay. What about the right-hand side?
Yeah, left-hand side is looking good. I feel like the right-hand side, yeah, also seems to have them. And even goes into detail about...
like I would have thought Kyle Tuttle was a family member. There we go.
Yeah, that is nice, too, that it points out that they're not related, which they aren't.
I even
Says that here, too.
Scrug style, yeah.
So, yeah, these are actually really pretty good.
Okay, now.
So who are they?
Exactly.
Which one do I like better, though?
Is it a tie? Is there anything wrong in here? I guess would be the first thing.
There's nothing wrong.
Crooked Tree was a Grammy
I feel like the
Award.
one on the right might have a little bit more.
I didn't know about the alopecia and LGBTQ. That's pretty cool.
I think I'm gonna go with B.
All right. So I think on the bottom there is B is better. Yeah, you get it.
B is
LunarCall.
Interesting.
Never heard of LunarCall.
It beat out DeepSeek R1.
Yeah. I was also surprised that DeepSeek R1 did so well. That I've often found that it will come up with weird info.
Huh. I've never heard of LunarCall. So now I've got another thing to go check out.
Very interesting.
At least knows it's music, bluegrass music. Okay.
2 days ago. Yeah, is it brand new?
Yeah, I don't know. I got to put it on the list.
I think it's brand new.
Other things to do. I'll have to come back to this.
Wow.
Huh.
All right.
Alrighty. That was fun.
Amazing.
And brief and short, and probably good because it's a little bit shorter and different from some of the others.
I think that's good. I think this is like when it answers a couple questions for me. One, how do I compare like a new model that's just come out? Like, how do I know if Llama 4 is better than the others? So now I've got a tool. That's awesome. The other is, doing it once is cool, but I'd love to do this 1,000 or 2,000 times kind of thing. And it looks like OpenRouter with money could help you actually compare the two. So I think that's a good thing because there are models coming out on a regular basis. As we noticed, we had just played around with Llama 4. I'd not heard of LunarCall. It seems to be getting some press, so
I'm sure
another thing to look into.
5 have come out since we've started recording this video.
Just a quick fact, it looks like the release date of Llama 4 was set to be today, and someone had gone in GitHub and changed the date to Saturday, which a lot of people are speculating maybe there was a big drop happening today, and as a result, they pushed the release to a Saturday, because it was weird to have a Saturday release. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe there's another one coming today that we've not heard of yet.
It's tough to keep up, but we'll do our best to try to stay in the loop and share what we can with y'all. So thanks for coming by and hanging out with us, and we'll see you at the next one.